first year, I was the starter of the first year. It was given to me. Um, Mike beat me in a wrestle off, and then placed higher than me at the Great Plains tournament, placed higher. So he was the starter, and I was out of a job my sophomore year. And man, that was tough. And I just it was all of a sudden, and I was just way ahead of myself, way too much of myself,
Yeah.
um, just got my, forgot, lost my path maybe with my work ethic and understanding that, hey, dude, you better fight and claw because, starting at the University of Nebraska is, and back then we were a top 5 team, it is not given, someone is
Yeah.
going to take your job. So I lost my job and I was sitting in the stands and watching him out there wrestling, and it was terrible. And what I did was I just got to work. And while Mike was making weight and traveling with the team and being the starter, I was working out. I was training, I was lifting, I was running, I was I was busting my ass, putting in time. And eventually I got my wrestle offs. And I beat Mike 3 in a row and got my spot back. And then Chad Nelson, he lost his wrestle off at 167. Chad ended up cutting down the 158 and challenged me. So after I beat Mike 3 in a row, Chad cut down, and Chad ended up becoming an All American the next year. Um, Chad cut down, and I had to beat Chad. I beat Chad twice, and that then finally solidified my spot. And that was yeah. So I
You
had
had to run through the gauntlet, man, like the
yeah,
mental
yes,
gauntlet.
kind of like what you talked about, and you know that was like actually kind of like the peak of my career, peak of my college career a little bit, where and I ended up winning the Big Eight that year. And went to NCAA tournament and was in the quarterfinals and ended up losing to Dan Warrensberger from Michigan State. And I think it was like a 1 point match in the quarters. And Dan's a coach at I think it's Bucknell now.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a 3 time All American. He was a senior. I wrestled Dan. He beat me. And then that night, I didn't get up from my. I was like, I remember walking to the arena. It was at Carver actually, and I was so down on myself because I truly believed I was going to win the NCAA tournament.
After
Uh,
everything you went through, it's like, all right, this is
well,
my moment.
Joe Williams was redshirting that year, um, and the guy Eric Smith from Ohio State I had beaten twice before that year, and he upset. So my top bracket was this guy. What was his name? Sean. His last name was Burke or whatever. He was the number 1 seed from Seton Hall, and um, Warrensberger was down there with me, and Hardell Moore. I wrestled Hardell in the second round. Then Hardell had beaten me twice that year, um, earlier in the year, and at national duels, and he beat me in the duel. And then I wrestled Hardell in the semis at Big Eights, and I ended up beating Hardell. And then I wrestled him again. It was like, man, we wrestled so many times, and ended up wrestling Hardell in the second round, and beat Hardell in the second round at the NCAA tournament that year. So I was on a roll. I felt amazing. I felt like I was, going to win this thing. It was
Yeah.
wide open. It was the year Ernest Benyon ended up winning it. I don't know if Ernie Benyon won. He beat Warrensberger in the finals. It was a
Okay.
great match. But lost, and then just was totally deflated. And I remember getting to the arena, and my coach Corey Olson was the assistant coach, and he was like a mentor to me and like a big brother. And he was like, "Yeah, baby, let's go." He's like, "You'll be an All American tonight. You're gonna be an All American tonight." It was like the semis and the blood round that night. And I remember Corey was, come on, let's go. You look at. I was like, Corey, I should have won, man. He goes, you can't think about that right now. You cannot think about that. He's like, you have got to win this match right here. This is the rest of your life. He goes, you got to get up for this match. You've got to win this match, and you'll be an All American, and nothing else will matter. You'll be fine. And I just went out there and laid a total egg. It was the worst match I ever wrestled. I just was flat. I don't know what it was, I was just flat and didn't wrestle well. And and that was, yeah, that was my sophomore year. And that was a tough pill to swallow. But going back to the adversity you were talking about, that was what I had to do. I lost my spot. And I tell that story a lot to my kids, about adversity and stuff.